has on the VILTROX 85mm 1.8 lens. This is built for the full frame Sony E Mount. So the FE Mount, it might be listed as when you're buying lenses or camera bodies. The actual lens itself is an 85mm 1.8, which means your aperture can go all the way down to 1.8, which is nice in low light situations, and you get that nice bokeh. The 85mm means it is a prime lens, so you can't zoom at all and you're stuck at 85, which sometimes people like. But when you do sacrifice that zoom in exchange for prime, you do gain the ability to go to that low aperture. So this is a pretty budget friendly 85mm prime lens, but let's just get into the review. So the brand name is VILTROX. Is a bit of a lesser known brand. You can see it there on the lens cap and on the side right here. It's a full metal body. The build quality is really good in my opinion, especially for the price. And speaking of price, this lens only comes out to about $400. I bought on sale for about $300 a little over a year ago, and so the price was pretty good for the time. But that is pretty good compared to the $800 price tag on your Sony 85mm 1.8, which is basically double the price, excluding taxes and all that. But when you're looking at lenses, especially if it's some of your first lenses, you want to go for a much more budget-friendly option, and that's where this lens comes into play. Overall, it's an all-metal build, except for the lens hood, which you can take off like any normal lens hood. It's plastic, but I haven't had any issues. I've had the lens for a year, and nothing's broken. Lens is in perfect condition. I think I dropped it once, but it's still perfectly fine. No scratches, nothing like that. Now you do have a 72mm thread on this lens, so I would look at getting a UV protector to protect your lens. I normally do that with most lenses I own, basically all of them except for this and the 35mm, because these are a bit more budget friendly options. So like on my Sigma 24-70, I have a UV protector, as well as my Sony 24-105, just because those are a bit more higher end lenses price wise. And so for these, if they break, it's not as much into the budget, but I mean, it's less than $100 to get a UV protector, and they have saved my lenses a few times, so I definitely look into getting one of those. But the lens is like really premium. It feels nice. It doesn't feel cheap, or it doesn't feel budget. It feels like premium, which I think is nice. And also you do have that weight. It comes in that 17.1 ounces, so just a little bit over a pound. But when you're filming, especially if you're filming handheld, it's nice to have a little bit of weight. I would say it's not too much, so mounting it on a camera on a gimbal, anything like that is fine. But this is a budget lens, so you don't get any forms of weather sealing. And so I wouldn't take it out in the rain, anything like that, dusty sand areas, just because you don't want to mess up your lens in any way, shape whatsoever, or your sensor, just because there is no seal between your camera body and the actual lens, as well as around different openings in the lens. Now, you do only have one ring, which is your focus ring, because you don't have any zoom ring, and it's pretty big. It's maybe like 1.5 inches long, but it is a nice smooth glide, and you do get like a nice premium feel. It's a bit tight in my opinion, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. Honestly, depends on the situation. So if you want to do a nice fast focus pull, then you aren't going to get the best out of this lens. But for nice smooth focus changing, if you're shooting manual focus of course, then this is perfect. But most of the time I'm in autofocus, and I would say this lens has pretty fast autofocus. I only have had one situation where on one of my older videos where I did a POV shoot with this lens, I was having some trouble getting a focus point. Could have been the camera, could have been the lens, but the only issue was that, and it was doing some focused breathing. And besides that, the lens has performed really well for me, so I would recommend it personally if I were looking for a budget 85mm. Now, from a functionality standpoint, you don't get any switches or anything like that, so like no autofocus, manual focus switch, and no customizable button. But the breathing effect, in my opinion, is a big con personally for me. Just pictures wise, it doesn't really matter, but I would say if you are doing video and your camera doesn't have breathing compensation, then this could mess up your shot in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, for pictures, for distortion, I haven't really seen anything that affects my pictures. The lens does flare when shooting in sunlight, and you can get like a bit of a ghosty effect sometimes, and it may like ruin your shot. But personally, for 85mm, I do like to use that for portraits. or even for interviews, A-roll, I like to use that for one of the main cameras. That combined with a 35mm, I tend to like to use, just because you have both a close-up and a wide angle. But this hasn't had any issues so far, and I've been using it for over a year. So personally, if you are looking for an 85mm 1.8 lens, then I would recommend this. It feels nice, looks good, and performs well. And honestly, this was one of my first lenses that I bought, and I don't use it a ton, but when I do use it, it does really well. But yeah, if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'll be posting more stuff, and if you guys want, I can post more content about this lens or any other gear that I have, and also POV shoots, how I schedule different photo shoots, anything like that. But anyway, I will see you all later. Thank you so much, and goodbye.